Two deputies stopped a black man at a quiet highway rest stop, thinking he was just another suspicious guy near the trees. But the next morning, they walked into court and saw that same man sitting above them. As their judge, it was supposed to be a short break. Judge Terrence Malcolm Everett had just wrapped up a legal conference in Topeka and was heading home to Little Rock. No robe, no courtroom shoes, just a gray polo, jeans, and the kind of tired eyes only long drives and constant responsibilities can give you. The sun was dropping low when he pulled off near Coffeyville, Kansas, a small town with a big mistake waiting to happen. He stretched by a tree, chatting with his wife on the phone about dinner and their son's grades. Just normal stuff. Birds chirped. A few trucks idled nearby. Nothing out of place until a sheriff's truck rolled in. Then a second. No lights. Just silent judgment. At first, Judge Everett gave a polite nod to the first officer. No response. Instead, two deputies got out, both white, one tall and tense, the other thick-set with a mustache and something to prove. They asked him to hang up his phone. "May I ask what this is about?" Everett said calmly. "We got a call. Said someone suspicious was out here," one deputy replied. "Black male, alone, might be under the influence." Everett didn't snap. He didn't even raise his voice. "I'm Judge Everett, just stopping to stretch. Here's my ID and judicial badge." They didn't care. "Place your hands on the hood," the taller one said. "You're detaining me?" "No, just checking things out." "You've got no reasonable suspicion," Everett explained. "I know my rights. I've done nothing wrong." That's when they grabbed him. His phone hit the pavement mid-call. One deputy picked it up, saw his wife's name on the screen, and silently ended the call. No words, just control. Everett didn't resist. Years in the courtroom had taught him to stay composed, especially in moments like this. But inside, something broke. Not fear, just a deeper kind of exhaustion, disgust, and then a witness. A teenager sitting in the back of a nearby SUV had been watching, recording, capturing everything. His mother, still in the front seat, was busy scrolling through burger joints. She had no idea her son was filming a moment that would soon go viral for all the right reasons. Handcuffed like a thief caught mid-crime, Judge Everett was led to the cruiser without shouting, without resistance, just the silence of two officers who had done this before, wearing authority like it gave them the right. In the back seat, his hands still bound, Terrence sat upright, calm on the outside but burning with quiet awareness. Outside the car, Deputy Brent Callahan stood like he'd just closed a big case, arms folded and smug. His partner, Dustin McGraw, was still peering at Everett's ID like it might suddenly reveal a hidden charge. The irony wasn't lost on Terrence. He'd overseen countless cases just like this, claims of misconduct that began with a moment exactly like this one, a snap judgment, a profile, a refusal to listen. From inside the cruiser, Terrence addressed the officer. "Deputy Callahan?" The man didn't answer. "I want to be clear. I haven't been read my rights. I haven't been informed of any crime. I'm a judge, and I have jurisdiction in this state." Finally, Callahan leaned in. "And I want to be clear. Judges don't get special treatment. You could be the governor, and you'd still follow orders." "I have," Terrence replied, voice steady. "I told you who I was. I showed my credentials. You ignored them." McGraw returned. "Dispatch can't find anything on him. No warrants, nothing." "Run it again," Callahan snapped. "Something's off." "Or maybe," Terrence said evenly, "what's off is that a black man in casual clothes might hold more power than you." The silence was short but sharp. For the first time, McGraw looked unsure. He opened the passenger door, sat down, and muttered, "Maybe we should have waited for backup." "Backup for what?" Terrence asked. "Because I made a phone call and threw away a bottle?" From a nearby SUV, the teen's camera was still recording. His mother had now noticed. "Jalen, stop filming," she whispered. "I can't," he said. They never even asked him what he was doing, just cuffed him. Back in the cruiser, Callahan leaned in again. "I don't care who you say you are. If you really are a judge, you can take it up later. Right now, you stay right here." Terrence didn't flinch. "Oh, I will. I absolutely will." Then, sirens, a different tone, faster. A Kansas State trooper pulled in, tall, dark-skinned, and composed. He stepped out, scanned the scene. 2 deputies, 1 man in cuffs, tension hanging in the heat. "Everything okay here?" the trooper asked. Callahan tried to sound firm. "Suspicious subject. We're just checking ID." The trooper looked through the cruiser window. His eyes met Everett's, and then recognition. "Judge Everett," he said. Terrence nodded. "Release him," the trooper said instantly. Callahan froze. "Wait, you know him?" "Yeah, Federal Circuit Court. Gave the keynote yesterday." The silence that followed was loud. Callahan, rattled, fumbled with the cuffs. McGraw mumbled, "You didn't say you were a judge." "I said it twice," Terrence replied. "You just didn't want to hear it." But the real moment of truth wasn't in that parking lot. It was coming the very next day, in a courtroom those deputies never expected to walk into, as defendants. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from his clerk, texts from concerned colleagues, and 1 new voicemail from an unknown number. Terrence tapped play. "Hi, I think you're the man from the rest stop. My son recorded what happened. I thought you should have a copy. He didn't mean to intrude, but it just didn't seem right. I'll text you the video." Seconds later, it arrived. Terrence watched himself on screen, calm, respectful, still cuffed. The camera didn't lie, and in an election year, the truth has a way of finding light. He had never chased headlines, always preferred the work to speak for itself. But this wasn't about publicity. It was about accountability. By the time he neared the city, the video was already online, captioned, "When a judge is treated like just another black man." By midnight, it had 500,000 views. At home, Yvonne was waiting, still in her robe, arms open, no words at first, just silence and breath. "I saw the video," she whispered. "They really did that?" He nodded. "I told them who I was. They didn't care." "And the trooper?" "He's the reason I'm home." She touched his wrists, gently, like she needed to confirm he was still whole. "Are you going to let this go?" Terrence looked past her, out to the porch, where the lights glowed over the flowers he planted each spring. "Not this time," he said. "I've let too much slide in the name of peace. This time, they'll hear it from the bench." The next morning, the courthouse in Sebastian County was packed, not just with lawyers, with teachers, custodians, grocery workers, people who saw that video and felt it in their bones. At 8:45 a.m., 2 nervous men walked through the metal detectors, Brent Callahan and Dustin McGraw. No uniforms, no badges, just wrinkled suits and courtroom tension. "What judge is hearing this?" Callahan asked. "Some circuit guy," McGraw muttered. They stepped into room 3B, took their seats, and then heard it. "All rise." They stood, and in walked the man they'd cuffed the day before. Robe on, face unreadable. Judge Terrence M. Everett. Callahan blinked in disbelief. McGraw's jaw dropped. The same man they dismissed as "some guy by the trees" now sat behind the bench with their futures in his hands. But Everett wasn't there for revenge. He was there to uphold the law. "Deputy Brent Callahan." "Deputy Dustin McGraw," he said calmly, his voice steady. "You are under internal review for conduct unbecoming of law enforcement officers. Is that correct?" Callahan cleared his throat. "Yes, Your Honor." You understand these are not criminal proceedings, but official ones. Your roles and your badges are on the line." "Yes, sir," McGraw said quietly. "I will not recuse myself," Everett stated clearly. "What happened yesterday does not disqualify me. If you wish to object, you may do so now." They didn't. McGraw's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we acknowledge your right to preside. We won't challenge. We only ask for fairness." Everett gave a small nod. "Then let's proceed. Clerk, play the video." The courtroom lights dimmed as the footage filled the screen. The rest stopped, the sunshine, the cuffs, the silence. Everyone watched as Judge Everett calmly explained who he was, watched the deputies ignore him, grab him, end his wife's call without a word. The playback ended. No one moved. Everett leaned forward. "Deputies, would either of you like to offer an explanation?" Callahan stood, voice unsteady. "We acted on a dispatch call, sir. We didn't recognize..." But recognition had already arrived, not just of who Judge Everett was, but what justice truly means. It escalated fast. McGraw said softly, "We didn't recognize you." Judge Everett raised an eyebrow. "Do you need to recognize someone to treat them with basic respect?" "No, sir." McGraw stood too, more hesitant. "There have been problems in that area. Drug users, some homeless. We made a quick call. We didn't mean to offend." Everett didn't blink. "I don't want an apology for not seeing me as a judge. I want an answer for why the sight of my presence, my skin, was enough for you to assume threat. I cooperated. I explained. You made your decision the second you saw me." Silence. Neither man responded. The judge's voice dropped, quiet but cutting. "Do you realize how dangerous that is? How many lives have been shattered, not by guilt, but by assumptions, by officers deciding someone looked wrong?" He let the silence hang, not for drama, but because it mattered. Public service demands a higher standard, and that includes both of you. He tapped the gavel. "This hearing is not over. I suggest you take the next 15 minutes to decide whether you're ready to be honest, not just with this court, but with yourselves." With that, he rose, and the room followed. The bailiff opened the door, and Judge Everett disappeared into chambers. But he wasn't alone, not anymore. Now the country was watching. The hallway outside courtroom 3B buzzed, not with noise, but with anticipation. Dozens waited quietly, phones in hand, eyes on the doors. Local news vans lined the street. Reporters live on air. Online, the video had crossed 1 million views. The caption had changed too. He tried to tell them. They just didn't care. Inside, Callahan sat rigid, sweat gathering at his collar. McGraw wasn't doing much better. His attorney leaned in, whispering urgently, but McGraw's attention was elsewhere, on the faces in the gallery. A nurse in scrubs, a man in a mechanic's jumpsuit, a teacher, college kids, strangers, yet not. These were the people they were sworn to protect. And today, those people had come to see what happens when power finally meets accountability. The door opened. Judge Everett returned, his robe crisp, his expression unreadable. "Let's proceed," he said. The clerk read testimony from 2 eyewitnesses, including the mother who left the voicemail. She spoke via Zoom, voice clear and steady. They didn't ask questions. They used force. "My son's 15. He knew it wasn't right. That's why he filmed it. That's the only reason we have the truth." Then came the final clip. Dash cam footage from the state trooper's vehicle. It showed the moment he stepped out, recognized Everett, and ordered his release. McGraw dropped his gaze. Callahan sank lower in his chair. Everett folded his hands. "Deputies, do you believe you made a mistake?" Silence. "I'm not asking about your intentions," he clarified. "I'm asking whether you recognize the impact." McGraw's voice cracked. "Yes, Your Honor, I do." Callahan stayed quiet, Judge Everett leaned in. "I've been on this bench for 20 years, and in that time, I've seen officers shielded by silence, by their colleagues, by departments, sometimes even by courts. But justice doesn't protect the badge. It protects the truth." He looked each man in the eyes. "I'm recommending disciplinary action to your department, mandatory suspension. I'm also referring this case to the State Attorney General's office for civil review. Whether charges follow is no longer my call, but this won't disappear into a drawer." The courtroom stayed still, words hanging in the air. "You're both fortunate that I was the one in cuffs," Everett said finally. "Because if I had been anyone else, just another man passing through town, it might not have ended as safely." No applause, no shouts, just understanding. In the back, Yvonne watched. She met her husband's eyes and gave the smallest nod. Not relief, not celebration, just quiet solidarity. But justice doesn't end when the gavel drops, because what happened next pushed the story beyond courtroom walls. When the day ended, Callahan and McGraw tried to exit through a side door, away from cameras. But it was too late for shadows. Everything that needed to be seen had already been seen. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Not just local news, but national headlines, cable networks, podcasts, social feeds. Some voices rushed to defend the deputies, calling it a misunderstanding. Others pointed to the footage and said, "This is exactly what we've been saying for decades." It didn't matter what Judge Everett was wearing. Didn't matter how calmly he spoke or what titles he held. To some, he was still just a threat. But that moment, Callahan's stunned face when he realized who he had cuffed, that moment became more than an isolated incident. It became a question. What happens when power is forced to confront itself? The next morning, Judge Everett sat in chambers early. He didn't turn on the news, didn't scroll headlines, just sat with a yellow legal pad and a pen, writing something he hadn't written in years. Not a ruling, a message, not for the court, not for the state, but for the people. Hours later, he stepped into the courtroom. This time, no cameras, just citizens who showed up again, not out of obligation, but belief. "I've had time to reflect," he began, voice even. "Not just on the law, but on what this meant, personally." He scanned the rows, young and old, every background. "There's a truth many of us live with, that no matter how we speak, how we dress, how much we achieve, some people will still see something else, something threatening." He paused. This time, the silence wasn't tense. It was respectful. "I've spent my career asking people to trust the law, and I still believe in it. But trust has to be mutual, earned, every stop, every shift, every badge." He turned toward Callahan and McGraw. "Justice isn't about revenge. I could have recused myself, but I stayed because I wanted you to hear this from someone who knows what it feels like." His voice softened. It felt like being erased, like none of what I've done mattered. McGraw blinked fast. His posture stiffened. "But here's what you didn't expect," Everett said. "I forgive you." Callahan flinched. "I don't forgive you to make you comfortable. I forgive you so I don't carry this with me. What you did doesn't get to define me or weigh me down." He reached for his gavel. "This court is adjourned." One clean knock. He stood, removed his robe, and folded it gently in his arms. As he passed the deputy's table, neither man spoke. But the judge didn't walk out with anger. He walked out with purpose. And it left a question in the room no one dared to speak aloud. Who are we when we finally face the justice we always demanded from others? By Friday, the video had passed 5 million views, but Everett hadn't posted once. No interviews, no talk shows, no commentary. He wasn't trying to ride the wave. He was trying to outlast it. At home, the porch was still. The phone rang less. His clerk handled the press. His son, Jordan, stayed off social media completely. "Too many people pretending to get it," Jordan had said. "Too many trying to make content out of pain." and maybe that's what bothered Judge Everett most. This wasn't a trend. This was his life, his wrists in those cuffs, his voice ignored. The next week, he was back in chambers, paperwork waiting, hearings to prepare. The world had moved on, but something in him had quietly changed. Then, a knock. His clerk stepped in. "You've got a visitor." "Lawyer or defendant?" he asked without looking up. "Neither," she replied. "It's Deputy McGraw, alone." Everett looked up. She nodded. "Said he doesn't want anything, just wants to speak. Said if you say no, he'll walk." Everett thought for a beat, then stood. "Send him in." McGraw entered in jeans and a flannel, his hands twisting nervously. He didn't sit, didn't offer a handshake. "I don't expect this to fix anything," he began. I needed to say something, in person." Judge Everett said nothing, just listened. "I've been doing this 15 years, McGraw continued. Told myself I was fair, that I did it right. But hearing my voice on that video, watching it back, I didn't even recognize the man I saw." His voice cracked. That wasn't protection. That was fear and ego. I didn't want to admit it, but I needed to. He paused. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a badge back. I just needed to own it and to say, thank you for not using your power the way I used mine." Everett's face stayed unreadable. "And Callahan?" McGraw hesitated. "He's not ready. He doesn't think he did anything wrong." Finally, Everett stood and extended his hand. McGraw stared, uncertain, then took it. "I'm not forgiving you because you apologized," the judge said. "I forgive you because I have to live with this too, and I refuse to let that moment take up more space in my life than it already has." McGraw nodded, turned, and left. The door closed behind him, and for the first time since it all began, Judge Everett finally exhaled. Judge Everett leaned back in his chair and finally exhaled. A full breath, no tension in his shoulders, no spotlight on him. Just a man doing his job, refusing to carry the weight of someone else's mistake. But this wasn't just about a judge, a deputy, or a rest stop. It was about something bigger, about the quiet moments when people are tested and what they do when no one's watching. 2 weeks later, life had mostly returned to normal. The courthouse was quiet again. Reporters were gone. The video was still circulating online, but it wasn't headline news anymore. A different story had taken its place. That's how these things go, but not for everyone. A group of high school students invited Judge Everett to speak to their civics class. He usually declined those kinds of requests. He was more comfortable behind a bench than standing in front of a whiteboard, but this time he said yes. Maybe because he realized the story didn't belong to him anymore. Maybe because some truths can't be learned from books. So he stood in front of 30 students at Fort Smith High School, jacket on, tie slightly loosened. A black girl in the back raised her hand. "Were you scared?" The room went quiet. He thought about it, then answered, "No, just tired, because I knew exactly what was happening, and I knew it wasn't new." A white student leaned forward. "But once they knew you were a judge, they let you go. Doesn't that mean the system worked?" Judge Everett's eyes focused, not angry, just precise. "No," he said. "It means the system worked for me. That's the problem. You shouldn't need a badge or a title to be treated like a person." He looked around at their faces. "I've ruled on hundreds of cases. I've sent people to prison. I've given people second chances. I've read every law they expect you to follow. But let me tell you something you won't find in any textbook. The law only works when the people behind it care more about doing what's right than what's easy." A student nodded, jotting something down. "You'll grow up in a world that tells you to stay quiet, that says it's just the way things are. Don't believe that. Speak up, record it, share it, question it, because silence is how injustice survives." He paused, then smiled, not for attention, but for them, for the future. That moment at the rest stop didn't break me. It reminded me that power doesn't change who you are, it reveals it. And when your time comes, you'll have a choice. Will you look away or step forward? A quiet stillness settled over the classroom. Not discomfort, respect, the kind that can't be taught. That evening, back at home, Yvonne handed him a coffee and sat with him on the porch. No need for words. The flowers were blooming again. Same porch, same man. But something had shifted. He didn't have to chase justice anymore. He was justice, quiet, steady, unshaken. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start something bigger. If this story moved you, even just a little, don't scroll past it. Share it. Talk about it. Use your voice. Because someone else's silence might be costing someone their dignity. And change doesn't happen when we wait. It happens when we act. So the only question left is, who will you be when no one's watching?